Getting set to leave for the scrapyard one cold but clear morning, I was about to climb up into the lorry's cab when the yard phone rang. Leaving the engine ticking over, I went into the office and grabbed the receiver. On the other end was a guy called Tony who helped out at a small garage and crane hire firm down in the next town. He told me he had a scrap Sherpa van to be collected, but it had to be gone that very day. I agreed to call in later. Driving into the city in order to weigh in what was already on the Bedford, I got to thinking as the countryside rolled by. This Tony was not someone I had had much to do with previously when it came to deals. His gaffer was okay to a point, but could be a smart ass when playing to an audience on his own turf. Tony just went along with it, wondering why he had rang me and not one of his boss's pet scrappies, whilst continuing to muse as I unloaded the few bits off of the truck and collected my money. Things had been quiet for a few weeks, so the load I had just delivered was nothing but bits and pieces, not worth a fat lot at all. Heading straight from the scrapyard to the job, I pulled onto the riverfront garage's forecourt. Pottering around the back of the establishment and into the workshop, Tony and his gaffer, plus a couple of other fellas, looked up, then continued working on an 80s single-wheel petrol Sherpa pickup. After a good 5 minutes, I still couldn't make my mind up if they were stripping the old truck or trying to repair it. "This the truck to go then, Tony?" I inquired. "Thought it was a van you wanted rid of." His boss snorted with laughter. Turned out the one they were working on was Tony's daily driver. This he rather indignantly pointed out, and indicated the van to go was around the corner awaiting me half in the hedge. Of a similar vintage to the pickup, I was greeted with what was basically a shell, all running gear removed, cab doors thrown in the back, which judging by the colour had come from the pickup in the workshop, and no rear doors present. The whole thing had been totally stripped out, with no parts to sell on. This was just a literal scrap job. These fellas had seen to it that there would be no cream. I had played this scene before, many times. Tony fired up the firm's Bedford 1630 crane, and plonked the shell down on my truck. It was whilst I was strapping down that he came up behind me wanting to know what I was going to give him for this wreck. I just laughed and said that given that the thing was more fresh air than metal, it had to be a gift or I didn't want it. Rather predictably, that was when the peg flew out. I had already detected some latent aggression towards me whenever I had been in these blokes' company before. This was looking like it was going to turn ugly. Pushing me against the crane's cab, Tony then shouted his boss. Now cornered, I had these two blokes in their late forties up in my face, telling me where I'd gone wrong in life. I told them just to lift the bloody thing off my truck, and they could keep the heap of crap. No, they were not going to do that. Instead, they would fill the shell with loose metal from the garage's scrap bins, then I was to take it to be weighed in. The bridge ticket then to be brought straight back to them along with any money I made. If I did this, they would split the cash up how they saw fit, or I could, as Tony put it, fuck off with nothing but a couple of black eyes. In something of a no-win situation, I had to make a quick decision. Tell them where to shove it and get a kick in, take the scrap and not come back, or go along with it all and turn things to my advantage if I could. The first option didn't appeal. The second would mean endless hassle everywhere I went, and probably end up the same result as the first. I went with the last of the three. Furiously simmering as I made my way back into the city, dragging this now pretty weighty Sherpa, it being stuffed to the gunnels, I came up with an idea. Switch tickets. Once tipped and with quite a few quid stashed away in the truck, I pulled out the yard ticket from earlier. Bingo! Old John at the yard had not bothered to put the time on that morning. Flattening the paper out on the seat, I headed back to the garage. This time, Tony and the others were out like Jack in the boxes as soon as I drove in. "You better have our money, kid," he shouted, grinning. I handed his gaffer the bridge ticket and the few notes and coins. He just stared at it, then at me before giving it to Tony. "This has got to be wrong," Tony shouted in my face with a wave of fish paste sandwich breath. I just shrugged my shoulders and started backing away as a lady walked into the garage shop area to pay for her fuel. He moved to follow me, but his boss caught his arm and just shook his head at Tony. I fired up the Bedford and headed home, making a mental note to avoid that place for a good while. I still see his boss now and then, but this incident has never been mentioned again, and Tony has long since passed away. Hello there. Thank you for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, would like to see a few more, please give us a subscribe and a like. It is appreciated. Always means a lot. All the best. Take care.